Let's getting into today's class. We are going to talk about plant ID. We're going to go over like more than 2 dozen, quite a few. I will try to not go. I'm going to kind of go as fast as I can because there are quite a few and I want to get to all of them, but I'll try not to be too just like rip roaring through them. And we'll try to identify some non-native plants that are that work with native plants in the landscape. So just to start, oh, also I should just say there is a handout for this class that if you got your workbook or if you look at the digital one, it's called Easy Native Plants for Southern California. It's a great little handout for like the kind of easy plants for beginners, but also that are kind of like unfussy plants. So that's a good little handout you could have with you if you want to, I don't know, make notes on it too. And your homework, we're going to go over at the end, which is a separate PowerPoint. But thank you guys for submitting your pictures. And I think I said this at some of the folks a little bit earlier, but if you have your flashcards with you, that's also kind of nice to follow along with them. So I recommend grabbing those if you have them. Almost everything we're talking about, I feel like with the exception of a few, are in the flashcards. So yeah, anyway, back to the slides. So I gotta move this over a little bit, sorry. So California native plants, there's a nice definition actually in the About Native Plants in the first handout from the first lecture, but in a nutshell, they are native plants that are those that existed for millennia in their present form in California, so prior to European contact. And they have evolved here for over a very long period. So they had time to adapt to their environmental conditions like the weather and the soil. And they've really co-evolved with microbes and fungi and insects and animals and even humans, obviously, like the indigenous folks in the areas also that co-evolved with these plants. So they really have this formed a complex network of relationships, you know, communities, you know, these plants. So, where did I, yeah. And a note about our weather, you know, so here in the California Floristic Province, which actually includes, well, it's disputed, but includes a little bit of Oregon and a little bit of Northern Baja. The little bit about our weather, so the California Floristic Province, we are part of a Mediterranean climate region, which is characterized by our warm, dry summers and our cool, wet winters. And there are only 5 other Mediterranean kind of climate regions in the world, and they are threatened because people like living in them and development and whatnot. But, and also typically plants from other Mediterranean regions do work well in our environment, or sorry, in California, or with California native plants, typically, not all of them. Some of them kind of take over. But that's because they are adapted at least to the same weather, though maybe the soils are different and the plant life and the coexistence with other organisms is different. They at least got the weather down. So just a little note there about the Mediterranean climate. The particular groupings of species that are adapted to kind of similar local environmental conditions, they grow together and they form what we call like a plant community. So it's kind of like a plant palette, you know, so just a bunch of plants that like kind of go together, like growing together and grow well together, you know. So we're going to go over a few of the plant communities now, but by no means is this all of them. In fact, the scientific literature, I think, gets much more nuanced about the plant communities, but there's just a few here we're going to talk about. And also because the plant communities are where a lot of our, well, I think it's important to know the plant communities because many of our plants in the horticultural world come from these communities, obviously, but also it really can inform your design or your maintenance. So knowing where that, like what plants make sense together, what plants work together. So if you know it's from a specific community or you have a specific environmental condition in a garden, you're like, oh, this is a lot, you know, more like coastal area or a very wet area or dry, like a desert. You can start to kind of choose and place plants appropriately, knowing the plant communities. So just to get over a couple of them, the coastal sage scrub, like the name suggests, is usually kind of near the coast. And some of the members, I guess, in this community would be things like Artemisia, Baccharis, buckwheats, Kinselias, Sambucus, which, oh, well, I kind of argue with that one, but anyway, you see them everywhere. But Sambucus, gumweed, salvias for sure, the sages, deerweeds, and plenty of annuals and bulbs. And typically, this is kind of a lower growing vegetation. You know, it's kind of low growing and a lot of aromatic species there. So Artemisia, sages, the gumweeds, and Azalea even, a lot of, I was going to say a lot of flavors, but a lot of fragrances there. So, and yes, as this note says, it's very threatened because, go figure, a lot of people like to live by the beach. So this gets destroyed very easily. And it is just that little, like, you know, the coastal area. Again, oh, I didn't say this, but the, probably is pretty obvious, but the communities aren't like, you know, this is not like strict membership. So a lot of crossover, a lot of bleeding between areas. There's no strict border lines. You know, plants aren't like that. So this is just kind of very general, right? Okay, second one would be chaparral. So chaparral is a little bit thicker, a little more dense, like woodier growing things. It's really kind of more impassable, you know, like you can't really walk through it easily unless there's already a path made, right? But it's woodier, yeah, denser, and there's a lot of diversity here. Oh, yes, and they have evolved with fire. So it says here that they burn frequently. I mean, traditionally, they didn't burn as frequently as they do now because of, you know, climate change and populations and all that stuff, but they are adapted to have fire in their life cycle. And in fact, the indigenous people manage the landscape, many of our landscapes in California, using fire and controlled burns. So fire is a part of the chaparral community's life cycle, I suppose. Let's see. Oh, chamise is, so the members would be like chamise, manzanitas, ceanothus, like lilac, scrub oaks, penstemons, even though penstemons aren't very woody, buckwheat, rhuses, and the toyons. So I think those are kind of what you think of with the chaparral. I don't know who says this, but somebody talks about how, like, you know, if you're in chaparral or coastal sage scrub by kind of like how you leave. And essentially, if you walk out of coastal sage scrub, you smell all nice and aromatic. Whereas when you walk out of chaparral, you've got like sticks and scratches all over your legs and stuff. So that's kind of a little, I don't know if there's like a proper saying for it, but I've heard it many times. So anyway, chaparral is I kind of think of it as like, you know, in Spanish, chaparrito means like short. And so it's like chaparral is like a little short mini woodland. You know, it's a tiny little fairy garden. Another one would be the oak woodland, which is the real deal woodland, not the chaparral mini one. So oak woodlands, obviously characterized by oaks, so quercus. Oaks are a keystone species, so they really support the ecosystem and provide for many other species in terms of food and shelter. So a lot of, you'd see quite a few oaks in this community, but also maybe ribes. Ribes does well in the kind of the shade of the oaks. There's always annuals, some grass species, rhamnus, like coffee berries or the red berries. That would be kind of your oak woodland community. Desert plant communities, you guys are probably really familiar. Pretty iconic plant community. This has got, there's a lot of different vegetation types and at different elevations too, right? There's low and high deserts, and they're very diverse, and there's a lot of horticultural treasures there because they're so resilient, right? So they're pretty resilient because of this, like, you know, they can handle these really high temperatures and these really long stretches without water. So they tend to, a lot of the desert community plants you find in the horticultural world because they are so resilient and can kind of hang with, you know, pretty intense conditions. So you'll see annuals, cactus, obviously cacti, creosote. If you've ever been east on the 10 towards Palm Springs, that's a lot of creosote. Joshua tree, agave, saltbush, that sort of thing. Riparian communities are usually any kind of community that's found nearby or along like waterways, streams, arroyos, that sort of thing. And yeah, well, I'm going to go down a tangent. I'm going to stop myself. And normally you see things like juncus here in the front. That green is juncus. It's like a kind of like a harder grass with like a needle-like point. Anyway, carex, like sedges. Platanus racemosa is the sycamores. Salix is the willows. Ferns, monkey flowers, rubus, which are raspberries. So all of those plants, you start seeing them, you should really think like, oh, water comes through here. And also really good to know who's a riparian community member, because if you have an area in your garden that is a really wet area or receives a lot of water, you can play that way. So it's not just for, anyway, it's just so that you can properly place plants. So many times plants that are from riparian areas work well in these areas in our garden that are very wet. It's not always the case, but it's just, yeah, again, a lot of this is just generalizations. In fact, the whole course is a lot of just like, generally speaking, this kind of works. There are other, what's it called, communities, like I said, but as for time, I'm not going to go into all of them. We're going to start with the plant ID, so lots of different photos of plants. And this is where I would say grab your deck of cards. If you guys aren't familiar with the deck of cards, there's like a page that has like the legend there. It's super, these are great. These are such cool cards. At the top, it has like the water requirements once the plant's established, what they're usually, if they're like a low water once a month type of plant or a higher water need type of plant, then their sun exposure needs, and also has the soil drainage, which is great. It tells you if it prefers fast or slower draining, or adaptable, which is like, can handle with either type of drainage. And then on the back, it has the seasonal color, which is great. It's not just the flowers, like when it flowers, but also if there's like a really interesting or like Yamativa fruit or seed head, it'll tell you that on the back of the card, and it's in red. And then those little icons, the little plant card symbols, there's like a butterfly container, and they tell you if the plants are good for, beneficial insects or containers or wildlife or hummingbirds, or if they're aromatic. So super great. I actually really love the part with the little picture of the person and the child, because it's like a scale, and it's super helpful because people just don't realize how big stuff gets. And when you see that like little ant lady or ant person and child, you're like, oh, that is a really big plant. Anyway, getting carried away. The cards are great. I'd grab them if you have them. And also you'll see that most of them have the genus name, so the scientific name. And generally, if there's many different species in the genus, they'll just say the genus, so like Ceanothus or Arctocephalus, and not all the different ones. But if it's a particular species, it will say the whole species name, like Gambelia speciosa. And if you guys aren't familiar, the scientific names typically are like more precise, because the common names can be more regional. You can like go anywhere and say the scientific name, though scientific names also change too, like the scientific community changes them. But anyway, it's good to know both, I find, but I'm sure they want to encourage you to learn the scientific name, especially if you're kind of in the nursery world or talking to the nursery world. It really helps you be precise about which plant you particularly want. Okay, so getting into it. The first one, we're going to go into kind of a strange order, but the order follows the same as your maintenance guide, which is later in the workbook, but essentially like categories of groups like annuals, then shrubs, ground covers, then shrubs, and then perennials, grasses, and trees. And either way, that's the order I'm following. So it might be a little bit out of order with your deck of cards, I'm not sure. We aren't going to go through all the cards in the deck. Obviously, there's tons of California native plants. These are just some of the most common ones in the Southern California, in the horticultural landscape at least. So annuals are actually titled as wildflowers on your deck of cards, so it's back at W, but I'm sure you guys have seen these. They come after the rainy season. There's a lot of variety here, and these basically complete their life cycle in 1 year, less than 1 year. So they're just popping up and germinating after the rain, and usually pop a lot of color in springtime. There's ones for sun and shade, and your card definitely tells you something like there's actually some more pictures on your card of like Chinese houses, which are the good one for shade. Most of them like sun. I don't know if there's anything else to say about. You guys see wildflowers. They usually come in seed mixes. You got to sow them every year, or they have to reseed themselves. But getting into ground covers, Arctostaphylos. So there is obviously Arctostaphylos shrubs and trees also, but in terms of ground covers, there's a lot of different selections, and they can kind of go from like mounding types to like really hugging the ground. Carmel Sewer, I would say, is kind of the lowest one. It's like 1 to 2 feet tall, and some of the others grow up to like 3 to 4 feet tall. So there's really kind of one for whatever you want. You just have to kind of figure it out. And just being careful though, that a lot of our ground cover Arctostaphylos come from the coast, like they're originally from the coast. So they typically are a little bit more temperamental in like afternoon sun in inland conditions, especially here. I think the note says, yeah, to protect uva ursi, so Arctostaphylos uva ursi, emerald carpet, Point Reyes. You really don't want to be putting them like in a condition where they're getting full blasting sun in a really inland area. So these are things you want to be wary of. That's the deal, is like there's selections for every kind of situation you're in, and just kind of finding the right one. Here's Arctostaphylos hookeri, Ken Taylor. I'm actually not really familiar with Ken Taylor. I know Tim Becker, the horticulture director at Theodore Payne, had a big hand in this, and I know, well, he's a nurseryman, so he really probably is putting all his like, you know, deep cut faves in the photos. But moving on, Artemisia. Artemisia, you probably know Artemisia californica as a shrub. It's that very aromatic, lovely, kind of silvery toned plant. But in terms of ground covers, we have all the Artemisias, California sagebrush, they really are a great contrast for like the darker greens, and they have this lovely kind of texture and the silvery foliage, and they smell amazing. But ground covers, like we have Artemisia pycnocephala, like David's choice, which also doesn't really want to be in full sun inland. And actually the ground covers of Artemisia, yeah, are a little more, I would say, like prefer a little less heat. But specifically Pycnocephala, David's choice does. And there's also the Artemisia californica montera and Canyon Gray. Here on the right is montera, and it kind of has more of a mounding. And then the Canyon Gray kind of spider spreads out. So there's options. Actually, someone sent the Artemisia Canyon Gray in the homework, so you'll get to see that if you want to. There's ground cover Baccharis. So Cowdy brush is great, really reliable, pretty fast grower, like just kind of like the humble workhorse of the garden, like nice, like green evergreen, you know, all year long, has some summer blooms. Here it says Pigeon Point is like probably the top 10 native plants sold of all time. And just because of its like sturdiness. It's also, Baccharis colularis Pigeon Point is on your easy list. So I kind of put like a little, you know, asterisk for anything that's easy, but this Pigeon Point would definitely be on the easy list. And yeah, it says other cultivars are equally, yes, Twin Peaks, there's San Bruno Lady and Pozo Surf. This is also really great for wildlife and pollinators and whatnot. It's usually spreads wider than it goes upright. And it's also good for fire-prone areas, especially if you like kind of cut it back. You can coppice it and cut it back pretty regularly. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say regularly, but you can coppice it. And it takes a good, like it can take a pruning. And as long as it's not very thatchy underneath, it is good for fire-prone areas. Ceanothus, like Arctostaphylos, a lot of different options here, even in size and color and leaf shape. You know, there's a lot of options. But just sticking with the ground cover, so Ceanothus is also called the California lilac. What's great about it is it's evergreen and also has these lovely flowers. These like, they can go from white to purple to blue, you know, all the kind of range of cerulean colors, and kind of has like a nice honey scented smell. The flower, not super strong, but nice anyway. And some of these ground covers, so there's a Yankee Point, which it's kind of lower growing, probably the lowest, like on the lower side of, and Joyce Coulter can actually get quite big. It can almost be like a hedge if you don't give it enough space. So a lot of times if you're not giving the appropriate space, like here it says expect growth to reach 6 to 8 feet, and I would definitely lean on the 8 feet side. If you don't give them that much space, they'll just go up. So then you actually kind of create like a hedge. And just something to really keep in mind with these ground covers, because they're plants, so they're very adaptable and they will adapt to their environment. And if you don't give them enough space, they're like, well, hell, I'll just go up, right? So Joyce Coulter is a very garden tolerant, or like water tolerant, garden tolerant variety. And yeah, I've definitely seen it as hedges even. So let's see if there's anything else. I'll just keep moving forward because I know there's going to be more. Salvia. So salvias are the sages. Again, we don't actually have a slide for the sages as shrubs, but you guys know and love them, I'm sure. A lot of you guys send in white sage, very fragrant and lovely, and hundreds of types, right? And even on your cards, if you look at it, you'll see all the different, there's many different varieties here. But in terms of ground cover, there are options. The one that actually comes to mind for me first is Salvia spathaceae, which is the hummingbird sage. And it has kind of like a really big flowering stalk that's like magenta and has this like very pungent smell. I mean, good pungent, like real hit of a nice smell. I guess I need more adjectives, but anyway, like smells good. So I think of Salvia spathaceae when I think of a ground cover for salvia, though it kind of is like likes a little partial sun, partial shade type situation. But here we have a bunch of options. Salvia point sal, common and easy grower, tolerant of clay. And I think Salvia point sal is Salvia leucophylla. Yeah, it's Salvia leucophylla, which is purple sage. And kind of, I think, prefers more the coast or part shade inland. But anyway, pretty sturdy there. And other notable selections are Terra Seca. There's quite a few listed on your cards. But there's Bee's Bliss. You can see pretty nice spreading ground cover, and then the green carpet, which is a little more, I don't even know how to describe that, but less spready and more like splatty. So yeah, anyway, so sages as a ground cover, you got options. Oh, let me just make sure, I like to just check my time. Okay, good. So moving into shrubs. So back to Arctostaphylos, but in terms of shrubs, you actually have 2 cards for, well, I think you have 3 cards for Arctostaphylos, which is Manzanita. One's for ground cover, one's for medium shrubs, and then one's for kind of like large to like more tree forms. But here we have just a slide that's just generally shrubs. So California, center of diversity when it comes to manzanitas. And you just want to be careful when selecting species, like specific species, because most manzanitas prefer good drainage. They don't want to sit in any wet situation. There are selections, so like the nursery trade has created hybrids and certain cultivars that kind of do better in the garden setting. And I believe yes, Howard McMinn is definitely on your list, on your easy list. So put your little asterisk on that one. Howard McMinn is like a good 5 to 6 feet high and tall shrub, and it just tolerates pretty average garden conditions, which not all manzanitas do. So I'm a big fan of that. And I think you can even water it overhead, which a lot of manzanitas don't like, and end up with kind of some rust or like fungal kind of situations. Even clay soil pruning, it can take that, but more of your manzanita species they really don't want all of that, I guess, maintenance, you know. So, and this is, I think Arctostaphylos is a good substitute for something like Raphiolepis, like Indian hawthorn, these like things that you always see in the landscape, that you really want to start to think about which natives would be a good substitute for the stuff you always see, right? Yeah, let's see, there's Arctostaphylos. Any other notes? I mean, there's so much to say about Arctostaphylos, but I'm going to try to move along, but maybe we can talk in the Q&A about more. So Ceanothus as a shrub, says here they're typically medium to fast growing. medium to large shrubs with these blooms again, with the white to dark purple. And I guess I didn't really mention this, but anything that has these, like the flower is like a raceme, so it's like many little flowers that form that flower, that bloom, that whole, that whole blue thing. And anything that has a bunch of little flowers is great for beneficial insects and pollinators. So, or anything, anything that has a bunch of little flowers, they're gonna love. So this is good for that. And you'll see that, I'm not always mentioning the little logos on the cards. So I can't cover everything, but yeah, it does say that there. And it can be sensitive to summer water once it's established. So once it's like, big and happy, you don't want to be like watering it all the time in the summer. And a lot like Ceanothus, Arctostaphylos, they're kind of touchy about summer water, or can be, aside from the cultivars that are a little bit more hardy. Let's see. I know on your easy list, there's also Ray Hartman, which is a Ceanothus. It's kind of a larger shrub. That one is dark leafed and kind of fast growing. So, excuse me. So that is a good easy list one. There's also cultivars that are white, like there's Concha, there's like Snow Flurry, and they just kind of have like, just whatever. I guess it's just up to what you like and what your situation is. Cercocarpus, I love Cercocarpus. Personally, I think it's beautiful. This one is mountain mahogany. It's kind of slower growing, but pretty tough and long-lived. And cool factoid is it's a nitrogen fixer, which means it fixes nitrogen from the air and on these little nodules on the roots, which is cool and good. Like, this is a cool fact, I guess, but also great for erosion. So it's basically feeding the soil with nitrogen on its own, which not all plants do. So that's cool. It's good as a screen or backdrop or like a background plant. Also good even as like a substitute for like bamboo. I mean, obviously it's a very different look, but in terms of like you want a vertical thing that kind of blocks stuff, it's great for that and like way cooler. But the coolest thing I would say is look at your deck of cards, because this is the flower, which is like, whatever. But the cool part is once it forms its seed head, which is this like cool kind of ghostly, wispy kind of seed. And when it's backlit, as you can see on the card, I'm assuming you guys all have the cards, but I'm going to show it here. Maybe that's not that great. But anyway, if you have it, it's just so cool, like really cool, feathery, wispy thing. Yeah, I'm a fan, obviously. Good. It's good for erosion control. I don't know if I said that, but good for restoration projects and things like that too. Oh, I gotta put my battery in. Hold on a second. Okay. Encelia. California bush sunflower. So these are great fast growers. They're kind of nice to have, especially have like one or two in there, because other things grow slower. So maybe having one to fill the space, like I was saying, early on, the garden's kind of like a mulch garden, the first year or two. So having an Encelia, they fill the space pretty quickly. So that's nice. Also, along with, I was saying, anything that has a bunch of little flowers includes this Asteraceae family, which is like the daisy family, sunflower family. So this family of flowers, also beneficial insects and pollinators love, love, love. So Encelia is great for that. And you can deadhead them. So like that, which means you just kind of cut back the spent flowers. These are also great flowers for like arrangements, or if you cut flowers, if you want that. But yeah, deadheading them to get a repeat bloom. Sometimes you can get a second one in fall. They usually bloom in spring. And if you deadhead it back, you can potentially get like a fall autumnal bloom from your Encelia. Oh yeah, and they are drought deciduous. So meaning they'll lose their leaves in summer, because that's when we have no water rights. But if you're in the garden setting and you're watering it, you can keep it alive and it won't lose its leaves and get, kind of that deciduous look. Oh, also it's on your easy list. Definitely Encelia californica is on your easy California native plants, or SoCal native plants. El Dorado is a variety that has a really big flower, bigger sunflower flower, commonly used. Let's see, Eriogonum as a shrub. You guys probably know quite a few examples of buckwheats. There's lots, as it says here, most diverse genus in California. So a lot of options, many species, and there's like, you know, few dozen that are standouts and that people use commonly. You can plant them like in swaths or just have one as like kind of a statement piece, I guess. But they are wonderful for pollinators. Again, this flower with lots of little flowers is great for beneficial insects and pollinators. Birds too, quails and stuff, like they love foraging under this like area and kind of hiding under it. And many of them are good for containers. So that's an important thing too for folks that don't have space. Containers are a great way to have some little bit of native plant in your life. I wanted to say something else, I think. Oh, you can deadhead these flower stalks. They have these stems and the flowers. You can, you guys, I'm sure, I'm assuming, but maybe I shouldn't. California buckwheat is, you see it all over the landscape. There's not a picture here, but that's Eriogonum fasciculatum. And that one has the kind of the white cotton ball-y flowers that then over time get turned into like a rusty, and it's all cool. Whatever, the whole color range that it experiences is cool. And most of them do something like that. So even the red flowering buckwheat on the left here, which starts off kind of magenta, gets like more brick red. And once they're kind of spent, and maybe you don't like the way it looks anymore, you just cut them back. And then, for example, with the red flowering buckwheat, which is Eriogonum grande rubescens, you can cut them back and it just leaves this like little hedgehog looking green leafed thing. This one, I really like the red flowering buckwheat for that. It's a nice, pretty large leafed buckwheat. Let's see, I'm just gonna, oh, and the Eriogonum blisianum here, I actually didn't know this one and I had to ask Tim. Again, he's a nurseryman, so he puts all his like favorites. But blisianum is actually a cross between Eriogonum giganteum, which is St. Catherine's lace, which has these, which is huge, really big, and has big blooms, and a cross between her and Eriogonum arborescens, which is the Santa Cruz island buckwheat, which has like these kind of thinner, narrower leaves. So this one, Eriogonum blisianum, has kind of features of both, like the thinner leaves of the Santa Cruz island buckwheat and the big blooms of the giganteum. But there's lots of options here. Gambelia. Oh, I have an extra one. Oop, okay. Gambelia is island snapdragon. Well, okay, your card says Gambelia speciosa, pardon me, which is island bush snapdragon. But there's also Gambelia juncea, which is the Baja bush snapdragon. And the Baja bush snapdragon is the Grand Canyon here on the right is an example of Gambelia juncea, and the Gambelia bocarosa on the left is a Gambelia speciosa. So the one on the right, the Baja bush dragon, God, I can't, Baja snapdragon, is a little bit more tolerant of heat and sun. So if you know, they're both can handle full sun, but they can also kind of handle some part sun, I guess. But these flowers, these tubular flowers, whenever you see those, you know, I'm sure many of you know, but like those are hummingbirds love those. So love that kind of tubular shape, and they're kind of semi-evergreen shrubs that yeah, have a spreading habit, even kind of arching, and can climb fences to a degree. But yeah, it says, oh, I believe these, yeah, these are also on your, speciosa is also on your easy list. So definitely want to note that. I love to know when things are easy. Let's see, oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing good with time. Okay, Heteromeles arbudifolia is toyon. I didn't know this, but it's a protected shrub in Los Angeles. So that makes total sense. But it's, I'm sure you guys have heard that like thing, which I feel like got debunked, but it was like, they used to call it, Hollywood was named after it because it has this holly leaf berry, but I kind of heard it was debunked and it was garbage. So now I don't say it. Anyway, it's got these awesome red fruits. It has the white flowers in summer, but the like real banging part is the red fruits in the winter. And as it says here, the cedar waxwings love it. Also wren tits, if you're into birds and birding. This is definitely on your easy list. It's just great. It's a great evergreen thing with the like lovely like kind of serrated edges of the leaf margin. I think for a long time I kind of was sleeping on Toyons and I was like, they're cool. But now I'm a super big fan. So get behind it. Toyons are great. They're also one of the reasons they are good for, or they're considered easy, is they can be used as a hedge. You can shear them. They take pruning. They really can hang with our kind of human ways, right? The fruits are toxic in like large quantities, but if you dry them and you eat them, they kind of have like a dried cherry vibe. But you just heard that from me. I'm no expert. Let's see, prunus, which are the cherries, wild cherries. Another Prunus ilicifolia. Ilicifolia is definitely on the easy list. And these are also awesome, like Toyon. There's a couple, well, there's the mainland and the island cherry trees, and the island one is a little bit more of like a tree form, like the stick and the things coming off of it. And then the mainland one, the Prunus ilicifolia, is a little bit more of a round shrub, but still kind of has a very tree vibe, like it's kind of round, like the way kids draw trees. Kind of has that kind of impact, I guess, on the landscape. But they're really great because of the fruit. Birds love them, and wildlife in general does. And these flowers, as you can see, are because there's lots of mini ones. Pollinators and beneficial insects gravitate towards them. So they're just great for habitat. They get quite large, and they're evergreen, and they have this like holly leaf shape a bit, this little dentated leaves. And yeah, they're super fun. The fruit is edible if you can get to it. There's genetic diversity. So I've had ones that are really sweet, and I've had people tell me that like, oh, it's pretty bitter. So it really is kind of like plant dependent. But the fruits are edible, and it's like a lot of plants that aren't domesticated. It's like more seed than fruit, or like more seed than pulp. So it's not like eating a peach or something, but it's definitely more cool than that. So edible fruits can be small trees. Yeah. So Prunus leonii would be like the more tree vibe that I was saying, and then the ilicifolia is more of the large shrub. Oh, sorry, it's Prunus ilicifolia, so it's like double, and then it's Prunus ilicifolia leonii. So they're both Prunus ilicifolia. It says it in your cards if you want more clarity there, but just wanted to be clear. Rhus. So Rhus sumac, or there's a lot of different, well, not a lot, but there are several that are in this kind of evergreen category. A lot of the fan favorites, I suppose, which is the like sugar bush, which is Rhus ovata. There's lemonade berry, which is Rhus integrifolia. And Rhus integrifolia is definitely considered easy. It's on your easy list. And laurel sumac, which is no longer considered a Rhus, but it was. And it's now Meloesma laurina or something. I think, yeah, Meloesma laurina. But similar evergreen vibe, leaves and like the similar flowering habit and like shape and look and stuff. But the lemonade berry to sugar bush, the difference mainly, well, the leaves are a little bit different too. The lemonade berry is a little bit smaller, but generally the nursery world kind of, they look very similar, but lemonade berry kind of prefers the coast a little bit more and sugar bush a little bit more inland. So and then there's skunk bush or basket brush, which is the Rhus, I think it's trilobata, and that is I'm getting a shaking head from Brenda. Well, either way, I know this one, the skunk bush, is winter deciduous, so it might not be trilobata, but either way, the skunk bush is winter deciduous, whereas the rest of them are mostly all evergreen. So, keep their leaves all year. And let's see, flowering shrubs. Oh yeah, and maybe it's not clear, but they're very large. They can be used as like a screen or a hedge or even a background thing. And they are really loved by wildlife. So they're a great addition to any garden. And then of course, Tim put in here Rhus lentii, which is the pink flowering sumac. And I think Miranda, you sent that one in, which she had a nice picture. Unfortunately, I didn't get to put it on the slide, so you guys won't see it, only I get to, but she has a really nice picture of the zoomed in flowers, and they really are very striking. I don't think this picture really does it justice, but they have these kind of pink flowers that are fun and cute. So what else? Good for erosion control, windbreaks, that sort of thing. They're very durable. Ribeys. I wonder, I guess like we could take a break. That sounds, do we feel like taking a break, or should we go a little bit further? Brenda,
Claire, before we go, we had a question that I sent to you via direct message asking about plant growth.
Okay, yeah, I don't check the chat. Sorry, guys. Thank you, Brenda. What does it say? Oh, well, I see that Molly asked where's the easy list. It's in your workbook.
And I'll also be printing links to the plant guides at the end of the chat, but this question went to your direct message. When a plant description indicates that a plant grows, example, 12 to 20 feet high, what factors will determine the actual growth rate?
Okay, I see that now. Okay, yeah. I typically, just as a little caution, I typically go with the larger size, especially if I'm doing a design, because you just never know. It's kind of hard to say. Obviously, a really good start, a good rainy season, like if they get in like the 2018 rainy season, right? Yeah, that really gives them a big boon, and I would say those ones really tend to be on the larger size. But sometimes it can just be down to like the particular soil in that space. I've also seen sometimes if they're getting a good amount, like not extra waterings per se, but they're in a good watering situation, like maybe on the edge of like a rain basin or a rain garden. So they have access and their roots are like, well situated, which has a lot to do with the establishment. Like I was saying, if they get a good rainy season or they're really well set up, then that can increase its chances of being larger. Also, I think sometimes you can kind of play with it, which is like some things like can handle part shade or something like that. You can like if it's in more shade, it's a little bit more stunted, and if it's in more sun, it grows. That's not always the case. It's really hard to like kind of put a blanket statement over everything. And I've also seen things that like I have no explanation for, where it's like, oh, the max was 6 feet everywhere I read and everyone I talked to, and then it got to be like 10 feet. And I was just like, so there are some factors which a lot to do with its establishment, like its access to water and its whether it had a good start at life. And a lot of times like, sun and shade. So shade typically kind of stunts some plants or makes them kind of more leggy. It can do that, like reaching for the sun, so they actually get kind of like more spindly and leggy. So there's all plants kind of react differently to situations, like to the not ideal situations. So some get like more vertical, like I was saying, like the if you plant them too close together, the ceanothus ground covers, they actually turn more into like a hedge and less spread out. So they're I guess I can't answer that like very simply, but yeah, it's kind of a fine-tuning thing, and you really you kind of, I think it's a trial and error forever, but I hope that helps. Is there any more questions? And then we could take.
And then as far as the Rhus is concerned, I think we were talking about basket bush. It's Rhus aromatica.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So the basket bush is the aromatica.
Yeah, I went right outside the window to check the sign.
Perfect. That is so helpful. Actually, guys, I'm not going to do a break yet because we have one more in the category of shrubs, and then we'll do a break. So let's just do ribeys real quick, and then we'll break at the perennials. So ribes is this genus of, it includes the gooseberries and currants. And the difference between gooseberries and currants is just gooseberries have thorns and currants do not. So ribes are great. They usually, well, actually there are some that like sun. There's a ribes for every category, but most of them are every sun exposure category. But they usually have summer dormancy, not except for viburnifolium, which is the Catalina perfume. And that one is an evergreen currant. So that one's the exception. But most of them have some like a summer dormancy, which means they lose their leaves in summer. And you definitely want to be careful with the gooseberries. For example, speciosum is such a cool flower. In fact, actually, if you look at your deck of cards, you have a picture of the speciosum, which is like this cute little like Barbie fairy thing that I don't know. I should really work on my descriptions. But anyway, it's like a little fairy guy that's cool. And that one, though, is very thorny. And so you just want to be careful about where you place them. Sometimes they're kind of a nice accent piece, especially if there's some evergreen stuff in the landscape. You don't want to just have all summer dormant, and you don't want to have anything that's just all summer dormant. You want to definitely have a mix in your garden, of course. So they're a nice addition, especially because a lot of them have these like very Yamativa cool flowers. So like speciosum or sanguinium, which is again on your deck of cards and has this like really striking flowers. And here ribes aureum is golden currant, which has like a yellow fruit that turns kind of like yellow to dark. And these all have fruits. I guess that's clear from the currant and gooseberry thing, but the birds love them. Like the birds love those kind of fruits, and they are edible if you can get them before the birds do, but normally we can't compete. But golden currant, I know Tim told me that this one's a lot easier to kind of keep alive, and it can kind of grow as a thicket, and you can even espalier this, or like train it. But yeah, they have a lot of interesting flowers. So let's see, what else do I have? Compliments to evergreen. Yeah, and like I said, the viburnifolium, which is the evergreen currant, you could plant on its own because it is evergreen, and it's called Catalina perfume. It's a common name, and it has this like very fragrant or like I guess I don't really like perfume anyway, but I'm like, the smell is kind of strong to me, but I suppose someone would like it. So to each his own, right? Anything else here? Oh, this one also, your card mentions that they're great for containers. So some of them, but yeah, a lot of them can kind of spill over a container or a wall, and that's kind of cool. And I didn't say this, but again, that tubular shaped flower hummingbirds love. Okay, so let's take a break now. 5:51, so let's say 5:56. Just 5 minutes, guys, that's it. And we'll come back and talk about, what's it called? Perennials and some other stuff. I guess I should read the chat.
I'm monitoring,
Thank
Claire.
you.
You're good. You're good. You have your hands full.
I won't even bother them. I'm just gonna take my break.
Yeah. No. Take a break. You're good. Rest your voice. Get some water.
Right.
So Fernando, when great for containers, we have a containers class, and I'll be putting that in the chat later. And Brandy, one of your classmates, is pretty much a container expert.
Nice.
Yeah. So you should definitely connect with her offsite, and yeah, well, not offsite, but offline, online. Later, talk to Brandy, send her a chat. Brandy, I don't know if you can hear me. Is it okay if I share your Instagram? Actually, you know what? That's on my list of things to share. We have a Poppy Hour, a container Poppy Hour that you can find on our YouTube channel, and I'll be posting the link to that. How many people do we still have online that can hear me? One,
I can
two, three.
Hear you.
We had a suggestion to play Ink Pink while everyone is taking a break. And this is a game, if you're not familiar with it, it's words that rhyme. So if I say, you know, bankrupt Corcus, what is a bankrupt Corcus? The words have to rhyme.
Broke oak.
A broke oak, that's right. So yeah, we're total nerds at the foundation. And this is what we do. Besides work and work really hard and in case the bosses are watching. Yeah, we start like this all day working. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Amanda, do you want to start with you know, an Ink Pink?
Oh my gosh, I'm so horrible at this. Maybe Andrew wants to say one. He's next to me.
I could say one, and it's.
If he's are you driving, Andrew? No, focus on the road.
She's
Well,
holding the phone.
he could talk. He doesn't have to
Okay.
look.
All right.
All right, a alcoholic evergreen, or a evergreen alcohol.
Gin and tonic.
No, easy.
It comes from Juniper Berries, right? No, I don't know. Somebody else has to answer that.
With an evergreen drunk.
No, an evergreen alcoholic drink, I guess you could say.
Pine wine?
There you go.
Oh,
Wait, what was it?
that's good.
What was it? Oh
Pine wine.
my gosh. I was
Yeah.
thinking I was thinking too complicated. I don't know why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta think real simple.
Yeah. Nerds.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So anybody else want to take a try?
Much berry. Wait, dang it.
Is
No.
that Miranda?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is
Sorry.
what
Much ribes.
a tribes?
Kind of obvious. Or I guess not.
Much
Sorry.
Rivies. Oh gosh, lots.
Very,
Money.
very.
Very
very.
scary. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, Italian fashion designer. I can't think of the other one. Italian fashion designer. All right, I have to Google the name because I forgot it. I can think of the scientific name, but I can't think of the regular name. Oh, right, I guess I'll just say the regular name. Italian fashion designer Coyote Mint.
Oh, Donatella Monadella.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, now that I won. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to the lecture since
Okay.
we got a few more, but that's cool. I like that game. Bringing the games into the space. I like that. Okay. So assuming everyone's back, everyone has more energy for a few more slides. Actually more than a few, but now we're talking about perennials, which are like these non-woody, come back year after year vegetation or plants, right? So yarrow is Achillea millefolium, common yarrow. It's an evergreen. Here it says native standby sturdiness is in the garden is legendary. Anyway, it spreads by rhizomes, so it goes laterally. You know, the rhizomes are the kind of lateral, not necessarily roots, but lateral growth habit. And so because of that, it can be kind of aggressive and invasive. But if you want it there, it's great. And also because of that, it can be a substitute for a lawn, but maybe like a moderate, it can only handle like moderate traffic. So not like, you know, you're not like doing slip and slides on it or something, but it can be a lawn which you could mow. So that's cool. You can, like I said, because it's a lawn, you can mow it, you can coppice it, same for this example, or you can leave it for the flowers. And here's island pink, but there's a variety of colors like whites to yellows to like a lot of different color options with yarrow. And oh yeah, you want to deadhead these if you're doing it for flowers and not lawn. You would deadhead these, and these actually work for, you know, like a cut flower or dried flower arrangement. But you cut these back, and then, you know, they just kind of keep blooming. So these are great. And also, like I was saying, because of these bunch of little flowers, or this Asteraceae family, this is great for beneficial insects and pollinators, and oh, and good for containers too. Doable, totally great. Can do it in a container. Achillea epilobium, which is California fuchsia. Similarly, can grow laterally and can get kind of aggressive, or be kind of like a weed, dare I say, if you don't want it there, you know. But it does come back year after year, and it's great because you can. Well, it's great because it has this like later bloom time, so more towards late summer and fall. And you know, so many things look good and have flowers in springtime that you always want to make sure you have a mix of stuff that flowers all year long. So this is a great kind of option for the like autumnal or like late summer flowering. There's a smaller kind of ground form ones. There's a lot of different varieties here, but there's kind of ground habit ones to taller 2-3 foot ones, and even like their leaf shape can be really different, or as you can see in this picture, is the color of the leaves like more silvery to even like a wider, more like not fleshy, but like a brighter green, you know, kind of a more standard leaf type and color. So a lot of options, but characteristic is this like, you know, tubular shaped flower again, that's this nice kind of red carmine, bright fluorescent. And again, that tubular shape is very loved by hummingbirds. So a great hummingbird plant. Also can be pretty good in containers because it doesn't have like super deep rooting and grows with those rhizomes. And it can also take some extra water, like it handles extra water well. It's not gonna like croak on you, and a really vigorous option, flowering option. Erigeron glaucus is seaside daisy. And yes, as the name implies, it really kind of prefers the coast. It comes from the coast originally. So maybe not so much on like an inland hot sun garden. If this is on your easy list, so Erigeron definitely is on your easy list. This is a great option, especially for someone who's looking for that more traditional look, I think, or even like, you know, kind of like a substitute for like ice plant or something, you know what I mean? Somebody that wants that, this is a good substitute, especially, and it has a very long flowering period. So if somebody that really wants like a long flowering time and doesn't want to have the kind of seasonality of many of our natives, this is a great option. Very compact little perennial guy, low growing, usually not more than a foot. And just like I said, keeps blooming. You want to deadhead them, so removing the spent flowers to kind of keep getting new flower growth. And also just so it looks good, you know. Yeah, deadheaded. Tim threw in a deadheaded Grateful Dead bit here about deadheading and Go Jerry. But it took me a while because I'm not a Grateful Dead fan, so I didn't know what I was talking about. Anyway, so on the easy list, generally pretty pest-free. And again, that daisy flat flower is great for beneficial insects. Also good for containers because it's kind of shallow rooted, not very deep rooted. So good for containers. Penstemon here. These are beautiful options, perennial options, real crowd pleasers, as you can see, like really beautiful colors. The range of colors is like from red to purple, pink, white, this whole gamut of colors. And again, that big open mouth tubular flower is, you know, the go-to for hummingbirds, and also doable in containers because of this. A lot of perennials are, because they're a little bit shallower rooted. And pollinators also like these flowers. So, oh yeah, Margarita Bop, not on the easy list, I don't think, but it's on some easy list somewhere. It's definitely one of the like most planted natives. People love it. Obviously, it's so beautiful, the colors. But Margarita Bop is one of the more like garden unfussy of the penstemons. This is not a this picture is just Spectivalis, which is the penstemon the showy penstemon. But the Margarita Bop, which is Penstemon heterophyllus, is and Margarita Bop is the cultivar, is definitely like a easy, I would consider, but very reliable, and it flowers for months. So it has a pretty long bloom time to spring to summer. So, and it likes full sun, so that's nice because it looks kind of more fleshy than most full sun plants, I think. Grasses, so we got a lot of slides of grasses here, but basically there you've got your cool and your warm season grasses, and that means like, so cool season grasses germinate and grow in the cool season and look good in the cool season, and the warm grasses germinate and germinate and grow in the warm season. And it's good to know that, because especially for your garden, if you want to have that grass looking green in summertime, you want to be picking a warm season grass, whereas most stuff looks, or a lot of our native plants look pretty green and nice in the cool season. So having an option for a warm season grass is always a good bet. These are cool season grasses here. The caryxes, the sedges are typically cool season. Actually, are they? Yeah, typically they are. Well, there's some that are just like all season long. They're not always fall into that. Like I said, plants don't always like abide by our rules very strictly, but a lot of different grasses. Grasses are great too as an accent piece, or even just as like a swath. Here we have some options for like the Carex spissa or amplifolia would be more of the accent piece, whereas the lawn option might be more like Carex pansa or Praguericilis. And this is a lovely kind of texture. Grasses, I think I also early on was like, grass or whatever. And they're just a really important texture to add into like a palette of plants. And yeah, they're just good for composition, I suppose. And let's see. Yeah, so cool season grasses. Stipa is also a cool season grass. This is the needle grasses. These are all bunch grasses that, again, make little nice accent pieces. There's also the Stipa pulchra, which is the purple needle grass, which is a lot like this one, but more of like a purple tone. And yeah, these are a great kind of like, you could plant these in like in swaths or just, you know, next to a rock or something like that. But Stipa is also a cool season grass. Festuca, which are the fescues, also cool season. And these are often used as a lawn alternative, but they still need quite a bit of summer water to stay green. So just because they can doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be like, that doesn't mean they're going to be water tolerant, or they'll, I guess they use less, but it doesn't mean that they aren't going to use any water to stay green. Let's see if there's anything understory, accent piece, or yeah, foliage. Most cultivars are the Festuca idahoensis and are selected for their blue leaves. So yeah, it's a this fescues that, well, idahoensis has a large range, so it's not just in California. But grasses are also great for erosion control. You know, they have these deep roots and great for that. And also great for hiding stuff that maybe like hiding areas that are like kind of ugly, or you got a lot of pipes and stuff around. It's nice to have that kind of covering it. I think we go to, yeah, warm season grasses. It's not pictured here, and I believe it's because, like I said, Tim's like a nursery guy, so I'm sure he is just putting his faves. But the most common warm season grass native that you probably see and is definitely on your easy list is deergrass. And I think I see that's such a common plant that to see as a, or native plant to see, I think, one of the more common ones. But deergrass is a warm season one that yeah, it's considered easy, that I don't have a picture of, but I believe somebody put it in the homework, so we'll get a picture. But anyway, go into the slide, I guess. Bootaluas, which are the grammas, they come from the desert, so they grow in the warm season. They are a clumping grass. I've never used them as a lawn alternative, or never seen it, but I believe it. And it says, especially because it's a desert native, so a lot of our desert natives can take that summer water because they just, they absorb it because they're like, oh my God, I'm a desert plant, I need water, so, or they know how to take advantage of it when it shows up. So yeah, but it does say best with an infrequent to moderate watering, but it does handle the summer water. So Bouteloua is a nice option. I think the reason he wanted to feature it here is because it's just a nice different option for warm season. And again, like I said, knowing your list of warm season grasses is always good because the cool season ones are most things look good in the cool season. So Bouteloua is a good option. Spirabolus, I think, would be a good substitute if you want to, you don't want to use deer grass, which is more common. But Spirabolus is like, I think it's alkali saccatone or saccatone alkali is the common name. Which is so weird and boring. And so I think Spirabolus aroides is much funner, which is its full species name. But Spirabolus is great, big like a deer grass, and has these really nice, beautiful kind of feathering tips, seed heads that I don't know if this photo really captures it, but they can be like really nice when they're backlit. But anyway, really nice, beautiful seed head if you want a different option besides deer grass as a warm season. And oh yeah, so it says they can be sheared back. You want to shear them back, and this kind of goes for a lot of the grasses, basically on their off season. So in the warm season grass case, when it goes dormant in the cool season, that's when you would shear it back, and vice versa. So for the cool season ones, you want to cut it back when it's dormant in the summer or in the warmer season. So generally speaking, if you are going to cut back or maintain or prune grasses, it's usually in their off season. So knowing when they look good or when they, if they're warmer, cool season also helps for that. Succulents and cactus. There were more slides. I took a few out because we have a couple, because I wanted to get to your guys' photos too. But I think a lot of people are familiar with Dudleas. At least there are Dudleas that aren't California natives, lots of them. In the landscape, and usually come from like, again, Mediterranean climates, but there are many that come from Africa and South Africa. So there are a lot of Dudleas that we see in the landscape, but we do have specifically California native ones. One kind of thing about them is they typically don't want summer water. They're pretty sensitive to it unless you're in like a really, really sandy situation or like a container maybe, because containers tend to dry out faster. So maybe you could do a little watering there, but they are sensitive to it. And it's good to know because it's just part of their cycle to get like kind of less lush and juicy leaves in the summer, right? They kind of like that they thrive on neglect. That's kind of like the way they've evolved. So just allowing that to happen and let them kind of like have the little hibernate moment. And then when it cools down and the rain shows up, they really flush out again. So, and yeah, they're great, it says here, for rock garden. And you can see in these photos, they're really accompanied by rocks or have some, even I've seen, in walls, you can put them vertically sometimes or like, sort of like angled, like a pocket. But yeah, that's because they like good drainage. They don't want to have wet feet. So is there anything else about that? Oh yeah, snails and slugs and squirrels. I mean, they have quite a few, is that predators? I mean, like they have a lot of herbivores that eat them, they get eaten by a lot of things, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So careful with that if that's the case. Succulents and cactus, agaves. So this is not in your, there is not a card for agaves in your, what's it called? Your deck of cards. But there are a few native species. There's a lot of non-natives that we see in the landscape, but agave shawi is a Baja native that is definitely threatened because it's on the coast. And I'm down in Baja quite a bit, and this flowering head is so awesome. You see it all over when you're driving down the coast in springtime, and they're just like so striking, these like crazy clown colored things. They're just awesome and really interesting to see in the landscape when you're kind of used to like low growing, a certain tone of color. So anyway, they're good for desert. Agaves, I think you've seen, at least conceptually, know what they're like in the garden, and good for a desert garden. And yeah, prefer rock mulch. Any of the desert plants really are going to prefer like more of a rock mulch, DG good drainage situation. I don't think I fed my cat. He's like really making it known. Anyway, trees. Okay, moving into trees. We have quite a few here. Quercus, which are the oaks. I mean, if you can, Quercus agrifolia is the big, the big one that we know and love. And if you can, coast live oak, if you can get someone to plant one of those, I think that's great. And some people really want that like fast size up thing, like the plant to size up quickly. And Quercus agrifolia is not for those people, but maybe someone who wants like that impact of their garden for generations. I think it's worth the sell. You know what I mean? If you can we need more oaks planted in the landscape. So just putting in my 2 cents there. But there are other options for kind of the smaller guys, and they have varying. You do have a Quercus ticket or card, and they have the kind of different ones like the Engelmannii, which it doesn't have the spiky leaves if you don't want those. And also, I think the Engelmannii it's like semi-deciduous, and all these different ones of like they lose their leaves or semi-do and whatnot. You have different options for Quercus. So if you have a small garden maybe and don't have room for a tree, but you want to have the habitat aspect that oaks provide, then definitely one of the Quercus species is a great idea because they are keystone species. So let's see. Avoid planting 6 feet from the trunk. Parkinsonia, I believe Tim put this in here because it's so common, but it's not in your deck of cards. Palo Verdes, I think we only really have 2. There's the yellow and the blue Palo Verdes that are native, but you really see a lot of this one Desert Museum, which is the thornless version. So the other 2 that you see have thorns. And this one is really common in the landscape, and I'm sure that's why he put it in here, because it's actually a cross. So it's like I think it's like a triple kind of parentage, and it's 2 of our natives plus an Arizona Palo Verde. So our Parkinsonia, I don't know if it's Arizonia or something like that, but it's from the Sonoran Desert. So it's not quite a California native, but it does work really well in our landscape, and you see it a lot, and people like it because it's thornless. So it's, I guess, worth the mention. But yeah, it can take us occasional summer drenching, and they do get bigger than people anticipate. So make sure to give it space, because a lot of times these desert plants can really grow up to be big with that extra watering. But again, it's not in your cards. I think it was just like Tim wanting to reference and talk about them. Western redbud is, it's a great tree for small spaces. It's kind of like more of a narrower tree. If you look at the scale on your deck of cards, you can kind of get an idea. It's like more of a narrow tree. And though it's a native of the Sierra foothills, so not Southern California, it's not traditionally native to here. It does do really well in our SoCal climate. And it is winter deciduous, so it kind of drops all its leaves, and then it blooms on bare wood. So it really has that kind of like cherry blossom feel. If someone's looking for that, like a more formal garden, or somebody wants that feel or that effect, it's a good one. And the hummingbirds love their flowers and pollinators, and let's see. Chalopsis is a desert willow. Let's see, great upright tree. Let's see what we have here. That can be pruned to fit space, right? So it's pretty tolerant of pruning, and you can kind of make it work. So it's a good, what is the word I'm thinking of? Not just reliable, but adaptive, I suppose. But it is winter deciduous, but when it wakes up in April, it really blooms for it doesn't stop blooming until the end of summer or something like that. So it really does have a long bloom time, and it has these big, lovely flowers. And again, you can tell by the shape that hummingbirds would like it. It has a little fragrance to it that's nice. And what else? Yeah, I mean, it's a nice tree option. A desert native, hence desert willow, I suppose. Lastly, almost lastly, we have some vines. So vine options would be morning glories, or Calistegia macrostegia is the one on your card. And calistegias are really fast growing climbing plant, like a true vine, you know, so it has the tendrils and like, you know, wraps around things and can be pretty aggressive, but really useful if you're trying to cover any kind of like hardscape that you want covered. Like a good example would be something like a rain tank, like a large rain tank. That would be a really good option to, you probably have to put some kind of trellis around it so it actually has something to grab onto. But that being said, it's always nice to shade those big tanks so to elongate their lives because they are just plastic. But also, you know, a trellis or whatever could also, anything you wanted to cover, they'll do great for that because they could get like 20 feet. Well, I mean, they're truly a big vining thing. Vines, so Vitis is the genus for grapes. This is our native grape. Well, I think we have a couple, like 2, is it, or something? Anyway, the native grapes are also vining like grapes do. They can be useful, you know, in any kind of situation where you want like a trellis or gazebo or anywhere you were thinking of putting a table grape, you could do a native one. They typically have kind of smaller fruit, like most, like I was saying, domesticated plants tend to be selected for bigger and bigger fruit. So our native plants tend to have these smaller ones, but that's not a problem. They're still cool. Also, there is this popular hybrid, which is a hybrid with like a European wine grape and like one of our native grapes, and it's called Rogers Red, and it has a little bit larger fruit, and also really has this kind of red fall foliage, so like really striking more autumnal color. But they all will have autumnal. They are all winter deciduous, so they all will lose their leaves in winter, and they'll have a little bit of that autumnal feel. But the Rogers Red has more of that like red change instead of more like the yellow that happens. Okay, let me see time-wise. We have a couple exercises. I think I'm just gonna skip through this one real quickly. We might come back to this exercise because I wanted to make sure we go through your guys's, what's it called? Your pictures. But if I don't get to it, I really recommend you do it. I didn't actually do it the first round and I was like, whatever. But if you do, for example, if you go through your flashcards and just find all the ones, for example, that say slow or like lento drainage, and just pick them all out and see what that palette is, it really corresponds with like riparian communities, which makes sense because it's like a riparian community is really close to the water and typically slow, you know, they're sitting in water, so those plants can handle slower draining soils. So it's, I think, a really good learning opportunity, and I really recommend you guys do it with the water needs, which is the top left corner of your card, the soil types and the light requirements, and just kind of like play around with it. We can come back if we have time to do it, but I really recommend it because it's also just a good way to get used to it especially for hydrozones. If you're, you know, planting based off hydrozones of your irrigation system, it's like, make sure everybody in that zone, even if it's multiple different species, has the same kind of watering requirements. You know, that's a really good way to think about it. So I really recommend you do it so you can start to kind of like think of the groupings, you know? So let's just do a quick, Lloyd, do you want to do some of the polls? This would be, I'm not sure which is which. I think there's like 4 of them or 3 of them, but essentially it's making a suggestion on alternatives to common ornamental landscapes. And these are just general ones, but the poll has some examples. I'll wait for you, Lloyd.
Okay.
That way also you guys can kind of interact, I guess. So here's some questions here. The first one says, which of these options could be a California native alternative for Raphiolepis, which is hawthorn or Indian hawthorn? If you guys don't know it, it's like a evergreen, you see it everywhere, and has these kind of like little flowers. I guess that's not very descriptive. I guess Google it because everybody probably has a phone. But yeah, the options are Arctostaphylos Howard McMinn, Fragaria chilelensis, which is in your card deck, but as a hint, I guess I won't. I'll let you guys do that work. And there's Rus integrifolia, There's also Heteromeles arbudifolia. And then the second question is, what is it? Okay. Which of these options could be California native alternative for wood iris? Right. Oh, I just realized, again, I can see it now. I'm getting what, I'm like, oh, I'm a co-host. So, yeah, I'll wait for, can everybody see this poll and like interact with it? Some of you, I guess, maybe if you're on your phone too, it's not as easy. So. I should warn everybody that I have a penchant for never, like, not liking there to be a right answer. Looks like we have, okay, like 20% of you guys voted. What's everybody doing? Reading? Oh, you're looking through your cards, I bet. I'll wait a little bit more for you guys to, I'm seeing the numbers coming in, guys. Looks pretty good.
Claire, while we're waiting for the answers, someone asked if cultivars provide less habitat than the straight species, cultivars and hybrids.
That's a great, yeah, I mean, personally, I kind of am a little more of a purist and don't really like to use cultivars because but they do provide habitat. I should say, like, I should speak not from my personal opinion right now. They do provide habitat. However, like for the case, for example, like in certain insects that are, like, what is it called? Obligate, something they're like, they basically, it's insects that have to feed on a specific plant. The cultivars don't necessarily, work for that in certain cases, but they do still provide habitat, and I do think they are a step in the like appropriate direction, And hummingbirds are going to feed a hummingbird. You'll see a hummingbird if there's like a feeder, and also Salvia clevelandii, like a Cleveland sage. They're going to go to both. So we also have to understand that like the wildlife is also very adaptive. So being a purist is like really not necessary, I think. And especially I think, well, I think the cultivars are mostly for, certain garden conditions or certain demands, aesthetic demands that folks have. But yeah, I'm not, I can't say 100% because I don't like to study this kind of stuff, but I do know that there are certain insects and things that really need the specific species. So that's why I do tend to lean towards the specific species, as opposed to cultivar if I can. And also even so, I like to go hyper local. So like really, you can go on Calscape and find like what grows in that area locally. And then you're like only providing plants that are native to that region or that area, as opposed to, for example, the Cerces, the redbud, that's from the Sierra West foothills. So it's nice, but it will provide habitat for insects and things like that. But if I can have hyperlocal, maybe I can provide more habitat. So cultivars will provide some habitat, but I like to think it'll provide more specific to a specific species. So I feel like I never really answered the questions, but I hope that helped. I'm going to end the poll. So yeah, there's not really a right answer. There's like a better and less better answer, but it's more just to get you guys to use the deck of cards and kind of think about that, which is like Indian hawthorn is, I think Howard McMinn is like an obvious one because I think I said it also, but I think Rhus and Heteromeles arbudifolia are great options. They're both evergreen, or all three of them are evergreen, so that's great. If maybe somebody really likes the Indian hawthorn flowers, then I would think the Howard McMinn, because the Manzanita flower type is a little more similar. But really, you get down to nitty gritty. And then Fragaria is the wild strawberry. So it doesn't have a whole lot in common with the Indian hawthorn, which is more of like a hedge, grows quite large and evergreen. So I put that in there as like just a fool, but it, in the end, I'm like, you can really plant anything. But Oh, I didn't even scroll down and see all the other questions. Look at that. Which of these options, the California native for the wood iris, most of you put Iris Douglasiana, which is clearly visually very similar, but I feel like I could make an argument for the other three also, depending on the demand or needs of the garden, right? So they're all typically pretty long, like the penstemon, long-lasting flowering, so is the Erigeron, and small, but not quite, maybe you can't handle the same type of slow draining soils. So it really, again, is always gonna be like, it depends. But the more obvious one would be Iris Douglasiana, especially visually, but and also habitat for the slow draining soils. Which of these options would be a California native alternative for rosemary? Yeah, this is getting even more weird as far as I'm concerned, because it's like, yeah, it really depends what aspect of the rosemary do you want. So I think there you can make an argument for any of these, and maybe the least argument for Dudleya bretonii, because it's really very different. But in terms of, rosemary has a nice smell. So does Artemisia, but Eriogonum has that similar leaf type, and Ceanothus has a similar flower. So all three of those, well, the three I just mentioned, I could see as being rosemary. And then lastly, for lavender, yeah, Salvia clevelandii, I think is a great option. It's got the smell, it's got that sage look, and yeah, I mean, it's hardy and similar soil type, similar sun exposure, really could work. Verbena lilacina also because of the look, but maybe less so in terms of the silvery foliage and the kind of sage vibe of it. And I feel like I said, these are the last two a little less so because it's like a yellow flower and not a thing. But again, I'm willing to go for any of them. I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh, did I not share? Did you guys not see it? I'm sorry. Share results. How do I get rid of it? Oh. Did you guys see all that? Okay. I don't know how to get rid of that, but maybe Lloyd, you can help me close that.
Is it closed?
Yes. Sorry. Okay, so let's see. Let's see the time. Let's go over the homework. I'm gonna stop my share and share the, oh wait, maybe I should, I'm gonna go to the, before I stop share and share the other PowerPoint, which is all your guys' photos, I'm gonna just show you the homework for next week so that you guys have it, because then I don't have to go back to this one. But, oh, wait, I've got chat in my way. Homework too. So the homework for next week is, and also guys, if you ever, if you don't get the slide, it's in your, it's always in your, what's it called? Your handout. There's the homework there written. So if you miss it in the class, it is in your handout what the homework is. But anyway, for homework, you're going to email me. And again, my email is, I guess I should put that in the chat, but my email is claire.acosta@gmail.com. And we'll do that real quick, chat. In case you guys don't know. I should have put it on the slide. Anyway, but yeah, observe a few mature native plants and compare to flashcards and other sources. I say just pick one. We don't need a ton, but what I would say is really compare all the resources. So pick one and like look at the different, oh wait, I have a slide for the other different resources. So here you have native plants for Southern California, your flashcards. Calscape.org is a great resource. It will tell you size, maintenance, tips, everything on it. The Theodore Payne database has all of these plants. Las Pilitas website is great. It's really has a lot of explanation or experience, kind of experiential knowledge there. Like it'll tell you like, oh, we had problems with it here in this low drain, blah, blah, LADWP also has a CaliforniaFriendlyLandscaping.com, or any other resources you want to use. If you have a book or something, that's fine too. But check the resources and compare them, because you will find that there's a lot of discrepancy. And so what size is the plant that you found, and what size does it say in your resources? You know, what is it expected to get at? Is it full size? You know, so comparing. And I just kind of want a little synopsis, you know, of this plant, what you found. Like, oh, I'm looking at this and it must only be 2 years old because it's very small and it's supposed to get up to 6 feet or something like that. Is it flowering? Does it need maintenance? How is it managed? You know, so how is it, does it have mulch? Does it need this mulch? Is it appropriate mulch? Does it, maintenance in terms of, does it need pruning? Are you seeing that it's like really overgrown and thatchy, or like maybe just needs to be deadheaded? Just, I kind of want you guys to just start to like, what's the word? I want to say improvise, but more like start to use the kind of comparing, contrasting, because that's really how you'll do it in the real life. You know, it's not going to be me here or any other expert next to you. So not that I'm an expert, I shouldn't even, any other person that says they know something. But anyway, so observe a native plant and, you know, just kind of gather your resources and see if those resources agree or not. And that's your homework. Going back to, okay, so what we're going to review, these are some questions just keep in mind for the PowerPoint I'm going to pull up, which is like common Mediterranean plants that are confused with native plants. Which are the most common plants you're seeing, and what resources did you use to identify them, if you did? I'm going to stop share and then share that PowerPoint. Here we go. Share. And here would be, guys, where you can chime in. Oh wait, I guess I should present this first. Some of these things are obvious, but I would love to hear you guys chime in if you had anything you noticed, and if it's your photo. I kind of put things together, likes with likes, as much as possible. I also didn't get to put everybody's in. Sorry if yours didn't make it. But kind of, I try, like for example, here we have Salvia clevelandii, so Cleveland sage. And you can see, I like this side by side actually of the two types, because the one on the left is almost like a hedge, which I've actually never really seen done before with Cleveland sage, but I get it, I see it, you know. And then on the right is like, you know, these separate plants. So just kind of seeing how they look different in the landscape, I think is really helpful. Does anyone have any comments? I just put the up close of the flowers. Does anyone have any comments about this, or maybe the maintenance, or what you're seeing, or I don't know? Thumbs up, thumbs down, agree, disagree.
Claire, this is Luke. So yeah, I took that photo, and it's interesting that you mentioned that as a hedge, because I had never quite seen it used like that before as well. And I thought it was really interesting. And because there's such a dense presence of that there, the smell was just like incredible. Oh,
I bet.
Yeah. But yeah, that was in Burbank, towards downtown. I think the city probably had something to do with that.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think it may be hard to maintain, because a lot of times it's hard to cut into woody parts of sage. So maybe it looks, you know, I don't know, it's hard to say obviously from just one photo, but continuing to hedge it, it'll be interesting to see how it does, because, you know, if it's able to really produce new growth and whatnot. But right. It is really interesting, and I totally agree. I'm like that, or not agree. I imagine it probably smelled amazing.
How do you tell the difference between a purple sage and a Cleveland sage?
Oh my God, that's it. That's like, Brenda, do you want to answer that? Because literally, I feel like I still look at the books. But personally, it's like, I feel like it's like, for me, it's almost like a feeling, but the flower of the Cleveland sage is a bit larger. Does anyone else have a good?
They're super similar.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the leucofolia and the Clevelandii?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very similar. I get confused sometimes myself.
I was just like wondering why you ID'd it as Clevelandii. I mean,
I was assuming that's what it was, just based off of the
Fragrance?
growth. I mean, it could be a leucofolia, I suppose.
So
That's
the
actually
best way
Oh, go ahead.
to identify the plants, in my experience as a non-plant person, is to find one that is clearly the plant, from an expert. Touch it, feel it, smell it, because they
Mhm.
will smell different. And then compare it to the other species. And if you can, this is something that we do with kids all the time, drop a leaf in a cup and put like gauze over it and smell it and see if you can tell just by the smell. And that's it. It just literally find species that and be able to identify without even looking at it, because the salvias you can identify by scent.
Yeah, that's a
I
great
know, and
point.
there's so many of the Clevelandii leucophilia hybrids now, right?
Yeah.
There's Kozo Blue and Alan Chickering. And
Yes, exactly. I think that's where I find it's easiest for me to identify them in the wild and then like have that. And like Brenda said, like kind of really get to know the ones in the wild. And for me, and I think we all kind of have different senses, but like Cleveland sage has a very like perfumey, lovely kind of like this feeling, smell to it. And the leucophilia has, I mean, still lovely, but like gets into like cat piss territory, not in a bad way, but kind of like, you know what I'm saying? So there's like this really light difference, but it's hard for me to even explain, because I'm like, it doesn't smell like cat piss. It's just like it's getting in that area.
It smells sour.
Yeah, it's kind of like a less, but yeah, I do think some of these are so hard to know the difference of. And then I think also sometimes with the flower heads are a little more distinct with the Cleveland sage, like bigger and more of those balls, like if you look at the one on the right. But I guess it's a good point, because the hedge one on the left could easily be like maybe the leucophilia, but yeah, I did assume there.
Right. It was very perfumey smelling. So that's another reason why I was assuming it was some sort of Clevelandii.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And of course, you guys, many of you, I want to say I'm really impressed, because last time I got like 100 photos of California poppies. It was also maybe earlier in the year, but I'm like, I was expecting like the same. And like, there was maybe one or two, I think. I don't even know if there was one, but I was really impressed you guys got some variety here. So white sage, you guys, I'm sure most people are familiar with, and these are both great examples of how tall the flower stalk gets. Any comments on this? Anyone share? We don't have to. I'll keep moving through since it's getting towards the end. Yarrow, there's two examples here. Again, I like having the example of them in the garden, in the landscape setting. Like one of them on the left looks like it's the parkway spot, there's a car there. And so great little option there. And you can even see the little shoots coming off on the bottom, because it is that lateral grower. And then on the right, similar, looks like, near a sidewalk, and, just kind of, I think it's nice to see them, especially if you haven't identified them before or not familiar with them, be like, oh, that's how it looks, and also I think that would be deer grass in the background there, which we didn't have a photo of in the class, but really common California native warm season grass. Here, two different types of penstemon. These are a great example. I can't remember. Wait, I think I'm gonna look, because I think I know who sent this. Or if you want to chime in, any Hector, did you send this? I believe, but it's penstemon heterophyllus on the left, and then Etonii. Again, I can't say
I think it's Etonii.
Yeah,
Yes.
Thank you. I like learned a lot of my
Firecracker is common.
Yeah, so no real comments here, I suppose, but interesting placement. I don't know if this is part of a rain garden, or if it's just a pathway and some rocks, but I don't have much to say about this. Does anyone else? You guys just feel free to jump in there. Woolly blue curls, lovely option here on the left. Also potentially a substitute for rosemary or something. It has a really similar but less woody vibe, but but anyway, it has a similar leaf structure and that flowering, long kind of flowering tip. Let's see. Oh, and the one on the right is, wait, I know what it is. Unless you're here, you can shout it out, but I wrote it down. But it's like an endemic, I believe. Wait, I know what it is.
The Dendromecon.
No, it's not
Dendromecon.
It's not Dendromecon. It's not actually a tree. There's something else I had to look up, which was, did I write it down? Oh, it's called a blazing star. So it's Menselia, and it's endemic to the region, which is beautiful. I was like, wow, this is a lovely one. So
I'm
it's actually,
sorry. And that's my photo. And I totally, for some reason, didn't know if you were talking about the blazing star or not.
okay. Yeah, did you want to comment on it? But yeah, well, I guess I was just gonna, sorry to interrupt, but the difference, Dendromecon is like much larger, and this is like a small perennial type. But did you want to make a comment about that?
On the blazing star?
Amanda? Yeah, Amanda.
This one though doesn't live it doesn't last very long, but it's very beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, but the woolly blue curl is one of my favorites.
Yes, mine too.
And these are actually both in my yard right now.
Cool. These are beautiful. Great photos. Yeah, no, I had to look up the blazing star. I was like, who is that? Grasses, glad some people brought in grasses. I believe, Drew, you sent in some of these, but a great example, I think the bottom middle is the deer grass, which is a good solid photo that we didn't have, but like a nice solid deer grass. And then it looks like a Limas Canyon prince on the left, and I think, and then on the right, some kind of stipa, like maybe a needle grass. But I think all these photos are really nice, kind of like what you're working with and how they look different, and how nice the one on the right, for example, looks kind of, bunched grassy together as like a little swath. Drew, did you have any comments about it, or anyone, not just Drew, but if anyone have any, maybe about I noticed they all have mulch, which is clap. Good job, guys.
We have these in my yard. We have never watered them.
Yeah, the bottom one.
No, it actually is. It's closer to the one on the top right that has the little dancing seeds.
Yeah, the needle.
I took that one also. This is Luke. Sorry, this is Luke again. That top right one, the stipa.
Okay.
That was also in the Burbank area, but yeah, I was really impressed with that specimen. It's got a really beautiful kind of wavy.
Yeah, lovely. It's like real nice, like head of hair. I like it.
It's interactive.
Yeah, but yeah, that's good to have. We have some. Oh, sorry about my graphic design here, guys. But some Dudleya, well, some succulent type things. So the middle one definitely. Dudleya that looks like a native. It's really kind of hard to, we do have quite a few different succulents like Dudleya sedums. There's quite a few. I wanted to point out the one on the right, the nopal, or the, actually I think we had a slide for Opuntia, which is the beaver tail cactus. We do have native cactus that looks similar to this, but this looks a lot like the, the one that you traditionally eat. And these are typically Opuntia, I think it's like indica, Ficus indica or something. These are the farmed ones that usually are from Mexico originally, and like South and Central America, like Northern South America and Central America, but generally Mexico farms these. So that type is spineless and not a California native, but clearly a great resource in that it's edible. And but these spineless ones tend to be usually the farmed one. Though you can eat the pads of almost all the Opuntia, you can eat them. These ones just are a little bit easier, right, for processing. A lot of the Opuntia have they have the glockids instead of the spine, the long spine. So the glockids are like the little ones that get stuck in your hands and you feel all day long. But so the Opuntia are edible, all of them are, but this one particularly, I just wanted to point out that is probably not a California native, but still lovely to eat. And the fruits, obviously the tuna, the little fruits that come on top are edible also.
I had a question about the difference between the floristic province and the California native. So I noticed with Theodore Payne's inventory, you do a lot of the Baja ones that are in the floristic province. Is there a distinction between California native and California floristic province?
Well,
I can
technically,
answer-
oh,
sorry,
go for
I
it.
can
Brandon.
answer on behalf of Theodore Payne.
Do it.
Theodore Payne recognizes the California floristic province and plants that grow within state boundaries as California natives. For example, desert plants are not in that floristic province,
Okay.
but they do grow in California.
California.
So we
Okay.
recognize the plants that grow in the California floristic province in Oregon, Nevada, and into Baja California Norte, because that is California.
Right.
So
Yeah, and so, go ahead.
I wanted to tell anyone, if you ever get a bunch of cactus splinters in your hand, you want to get them out, you just take your child's Elmer's glue and you just put it over wherever the splinters are and let it dry. You peel it off and it'll take all the splinters out.
Ooh.
Great. I just live with them and like just, it's
Yeah.
like the punishment for doing it wrong. That's great. That's a great tip. Yeah, so yeah, Baja, the floristic province, I think that's a good point to mention at least, so people are familiar. But if you ever do travel down to Baja Norte, it really is the same. You know, you really looks a lot like it. And in fact, like I said, I work in down here quite a bit. And a lot of the native plant books, you're crossover with San Diego because it's, you know, the border is such an arbitrary line, you know what I mean? That doesn't relate to the plants themselves. But the California floristic province really is mapping out the climate and that latitude and that area and the kind of the plant communities. So definitely Baja California Norte and a little bit of Oregon, which is kind of disputed, but are
It's
included
just
in that.
these look like Bretonii, and I was just wondering.
Yeah. I don't know what the one on the left is. I mean, it looks too thick to be like an edulus, like a Dudley edulus, but I figured I'd throw it in there in case somebody knew. But there are several different types. I will move forward. Oh yeah, these aren't the same, but I thought it's great because they're both in the Malvaceae family. There's the Malva family, which has those like big, I don't know, cup-like flowers and the leaves that are pretty large and usually kind of fuzzy. And this one on the left is Fremontodendron. And then, which is actually more for like Central California, right? But does really well, super drought tolerant, and it does have some kind of like irritating hairs on the leaves. So more of like a backdrop plant, or maybe not like right on your pathway, or just don't get amongst it. But on the right is the Butylon palmarii, which is beautiful. And you have a card for both of these actually in your deck. But really beautiful silvery foliage, but like this, you know, the Malvas have lovely foliage like this, but I believe this is a desert, originally kind of a desert native. So very lush for a desert plant. Feel free, yeah, I was gonna say, feel free to chime in, guys.
Yeah, this is Drew. I actually took the picture on the left of the Fremontodendron. I don't know what cultivar it is. It could be Ken Taylor or California Glory, but in addition to the hairs, for lack of the technical term, it's just a beast. It grows very quickly. It needs really intentional placement in the garden. It's about to go toe to toe with I think a Ceanothus frosty blue behind it, and it's probably going to take out a bunch of other plants. And so something that I'd like to learn a little bit more of in future classes or sessions is whether there is a way that you can in any way manipulate Fremontodendron, especially after it's been established, or whether it is true that it'll just croak on you if you try to do anything to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great, that I think would be a good question for Tim, but really good point, because it's like, yeah, it is a very sturdy, hardy, vigorous kind of guy, but at the same time doesn't usually, it's good because it's a low maintenance thing. Like you don't need to prune it, don't want to. But yeah, maybe we can like, I can like email Tim that and ask him about that, because that's a great question and point.
I took the picture on the right side, and I have a question.
Yeah.
I noticed some of the varieties are green color, and I don't know why this color is more silver. Is it because it's younger?
Well, actually, this variety, that is natural, the Butylon palmarii. In fact, you can look at it on your deck of cards. It's, I believe, like the first card because of the Butylon. And it, I guess it looks kind of green in your photos, but it has that fuzzy, fuzzy exterior. And this is very, I mean, I definitely see it this way. There is just a little bit of diversity in the nursery trade, also where some are a little bit greener, or maybe the plant, each plant is a little bit different sometimes. But this to me looks normal and like part of the, the coloring. But yeah, so I guess it's like a silvery, some people say evergrays instead of evergreens, it's like the kind of silvery tone, olive colored green. But
those are not the same plant, are they?
No, the left and right, no, are not. They're the same family, so, but that's different. And this is a Butylon palmarii on the right and the Fremontodendron on the left. And very different in size too. You can't tell obviously here, but Fremontodendron, like he was saying, gets like huge and is really a big spread out grower. And a Butylon palmarii is more of a small shrub, like sub-shrub, I guess.
Well, they can get to 6 feet. Palmarii can get to 6 feet.
Wow, I've never seen it that large, but it typically is like, known for being like 3 to 4 feet, but like that brings up a great point, is a lot of times these things don't grow to what it says on the resources and get much bigger. It's very hard. I mean, that's, I think, part of gardening that I love personally, but it's like plants are dynamic living creatures and do their own thing. And just like, your own children, it's like, you can't really like choose the path for them. They're going to decide how they live in the space. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have seen a 6-foot one. I'm not trying to doubt it, but typically they're supposed to be in this kind of 3 to 4 shrub range, but definitely, I'm sure they get bigger. I'll see if, let's see. Okay. Arctostaphylos manzanitas looks like a tree form one on the left. And even the one on the right, I believe, is Arctostaphylos franciscana, which is like Franciscan manzanita, which typically gets pretty large. It's in this container. But
and just to add to that, that one's just temporarily in a container because we don't have a placement yet. But that one's a really cool one because it's super rare.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, San Francisco, right?
So, yeah, and I guess they thought at one point that it was extinct, but someone had randomly found it in medium in San Francisco.
Great.
So little fun fact, but yeah, that's a temporary holder because we're afraid our dog's just gonna trample over it.
Right. But also a great example of being able to see that red bark that is so iconic of manzanitas that I don't think I even mentioned once. But yeah, I mean, that is the thing about manzanitas, is that really hardwood red bark. And this is a great, even though it's small, it's a great example of it. And the one on the left, it's hard to say what it is from the photo, right? Exact cultivar, but it's clearly a manzanita type and a large one at that. These are some ceanothus. The left one, it looks like a shrubby type, and the right one is clearly like a ground cover. Just wanted to put them side by side so you could see, obviously the coloring is kind of different, but you can kind of see the leaf type is very similar, and they're, what gives it away, at least as the ceanothus on the left, is definitely those flowers. They're not that striking blue, but they could be either a little bit past or that is their color. Not sure if anyone wanted to say anything about that. But not a whole lot to say. You guys did great. Artemisia, oh, this is the Artemisia on the top one. It's kind of funny, like maybe you can't tell what's going on here, but that's a wall. The very middle photo, sorry. There's like a red wall in the back, and then it's actually growing in like a terrace. And then there's the kind of cinder block wall in front of it. So it's growing. This is the Artemisia californica canyon gray. And it's actually kind of growing out and spilling over. But it's a good example of kind of the growth habit of the canyon gray. It's a lot more spready. And the photo we saw of the Montara or whatever is more moundy, you know, so just kind of to get a feel. I think this one is a good idea for putting over, what's it called? Like a wall like this. It looks to be, I don't know because I'm not there, but it looks like it's kind of going towards the sun. And so maybe that's why it's kind of spreading that way instead of spilling over exactly with gravity, right? Any thoughts about that? These two on the right, I'm not really sure what they are, to be honest. It's hard to say. I couldn't tell if that rust color was, you know, like was some kind of like pest management thing, or if it was like dust or whatnot. But it looks like it actually, both of these look like they could either be something like a toyon or even like a yerba santa, but it's hard to say if I can't smell it, touch it, feel it, the whole thing. I'm not that expert.
Yeah, the one on the right is, yeah, the one on the right is yerba santa, and then the one on the left is yerba santa in the front, and then you can see Eriogonum and Trichostema, and
right,
it's a box thorn in the back.
Oh,
These
okay.
look like they were taken in the SGV.
Yeah, this is at the nursery.
Nice.
Okay.
I like how you guys all got it like memorized. So.
Well, I see the mountains. I see the mountains in the back. Like I know where you are, and that is Yerba Santa because it's the one that grows at the lower elevation. It's not the shiny one.
No.
It's the fuzzy one.
Yeah, this is the area
Tycho.
Dicton crassifolia.
Great.
We actually have the
also,
other one too there somewhere. It's the sticky one.
In the photos?
No, in the yard.
Got it. Oh.
But yeah, this one, the one in the left, actually looks completely different than the one on the right, but I've been told by Dr. Adams that they're the same plant.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, plants do have their diversity, you know.
Mm-hmm.
This is Ceres. I just wanted to include this as a good photo of the Cercis, the redbud, the Western redbud. So you saw in the slides the flowers, but the leaves are like this kind of ginkgo biloba looking leaf. So just in case anyone wasn't familiar with it, this is the Western redbud without the flowers, just the leaves, right? And on the right here, the Matalia poppy in the background, you can see, and it looks like some aloes, which are looks like in the front here, these are aloes, which are not California natives. I believe they're originally from South Africa, or like, I think there's aloes all over African continent, and then some specifically that we see in the horticultural industry and from South Africa. But they do obviously grow really well. That is also a Mediterranean climate. There, like I was saying, there are several different Mediterranean climates in the world. Like South Africa has a little bit, Australia, the actual Mediterranean, you know, around the Mediterranean Sea. The kind of mirror image of California in terms of latitude, and like Chile, that strip there, that is another one. And so you see a lot of plants that do well from those areas work with our California native plants. And it looks like maybe like a white sage, or, you know, it's hard to say. I guess I'll start moving through these. Oh, this is a good example of non-natives but edibles that you see quite commonly in the landscape, especially in people's yards. So that's an avocado tree in the back there, and then a lima tree. So like that kind of sweet lime, you know, one that you see. Neither of these are California natives. In fact, citrus are from, I believe, Asia, and avocados are definitely not from California originally, but they do grow here. Obviously, citrus, they do well here with our sun. But and then on the left here is epazote, which is like a perennial herb that is used in cooking, and not a California native, but definitely a weed you see very commonly in Southern California, or well, a weed for some people and a food for others, because I definitely see people that are like, what is this? And then other people that are like, oh my God, I'm so excited. But epazote is very vigorous, kind of perennial, comes back, and yeah, but neither of these are, or the trees nor the epazote is California native, but you will see it in our landscape. Again, another one that is not a California native, but you see very commonly is nasturtiums. You see them everywhere, right? They, wait, I can't remember where they're from originally. anyway, they are not now California natives, but yeah, you do see them quite frequently. And they do provide habitat, you know, things will, bees will definitely go in there and whatnot, but are there more? Gosh, how many more do I have? Oh, wow. I think this is coffeeberry on the left, but either way, great, what's it called? Replacement for Indian hawthorn. It almost looks like it from this, or like Pittosporum or something, which are not natives, but commonly seen in the landscape. So you can see that it could really easily be one of those. Anyway, it's come time. It is 7:05, so I will just wrap that up. I think Celia here and looks like a Monardella there. Anyway, Caudiment. I will stop my share here.
Was that the one that they call mock orange?
The second to the last one. Pittosporum is, I believe. Wait. Yes, I think Pittosporum is considered mock orange.
Oh,
wait, does somebody know? Somebody will know. I don't remember any of the names of those.
And the other one I saw on the last slide that before you closed it down, and I always called that the butterfly bush. It has sometimes purple or white, kind of like tissuey.
The one on the right hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. This one is the that's the mock orange. Okay. I was a little bit confused because I ran out to take some pictures and do my homework and some of the things, you know, I was getting confused between California natives, and then someone told me, no, that's not native, that's invasive. And over here where I live in Palos Verdes, they are under the guise of conservating the stewardship of the open space. They are farming cactus, which is dangerous to our you know, children and animals. And I mentioned that too. There's a science center there. We also have the South Bay Botanical Gardens here in Rolling Hills too. But they told me no, that the cactus was native, the kind of beaver tail paddle.
Yeah, we do have many Opuntia beaver tail cactus that are native to California. I'm just going to do a little interruption here since it's getting late and we can stay on and chat. But for the rest of you guys, we're done. But we'll see you on, you got your homework. If you missed it, it is in your, what's it called? Your handouts, your workbook. And I believe next week on Tuesday is soils. So thank you guys.
I have a few things.
Oh, please.
No problem.
Don't sign off yet. Brenda's talking.
Don't sign off yet. Everyone should have gotten the link to Tuesday's class. So check your emails so that you can go over the class again. You'll get this link sometime next week. I did post the plant guides link in the chat, but you can go to our website and get a lot of the information that Claire is talking about from the main page under Learn and then plant guides, and they're all downloadable. I posted a link to Poppy Hour with Brandy, and it was all about containers. You can check out our YouTube channel and just go on there, you know, Poppy Hour, Brandy Williams. It's all about containers. At the end of the month, we're going to have a program on bees, California native bees and California native plants, of course, and maybe whoever asked the question about hybrids and cultivars and pollinators, maybe we might find out then. I don't know. And then June, we're going to have a program on Poppy Hour about the cultural burns. We started off talking about cultural burns. So that's just an FYI of some free resources that you can all access. And then we have an Espanol class at the end of the month as well. So yeah, that's it from TPF.
Great, thank you guys. We'll see you next week, and I'll stay on and answer whatever questions for those of you who want to keep staying on. But see you guys next week for soils.
Fernando, I see your question. Do you take roll? Yes, I do. I'm on here and I'm checking off the list.
Oh, great.
Yeah, trust me, I'm there. I'm checking my little boxes.
I check who sends in homework too, but it isn't required for your certification in your homework. Yes, guys, hate to ruin it.
I didn't send in my homework because I became confused after several conversations with different botanists or whatever, horticulturists near me. And I guess I was confused by what was invasive, natural, or just surviving. I'm the lady who had the question last week. Well, aren't the weeds native if they just pop up and they're growing and they're thriving? Because in my front yard we have that like freeway grass that has the little foxtail that blows, like, you know,
Right.
interacts.
So like so not all weeds are considered California natives, and there's a difference between naturalized and invasives. So California natives, like going back to the first slide, are plants that are from this region, like California Floristic
Okay,
Plaza.
well, I'm from this region.
Wait, let me just finish. For like millennia. So not just something that we see, but globally and over the time, of course, people have brought things like, the same way domestic cats aren't from here originally. So things have, arrived here and done well. So there are plants that are naturalized, which is a term that's used. Naturalized plants are plants that are not native, but they have escaped into the wild, and they propagate on their own in the wild. So you might see them in wild landscapes. They don't need water. Nobody planted them there, but they have naturalized. So just because they can exist in the wild doesn't mean that they're native. So naturalized is its own kind of category of non-natives that have escaped from the wild, like I said, and managed to make it in the wild, like the nasturtiums that we saw.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
because
and
I
then
didn't know the word that I was looking for, naturalized.
Yeah, that actually, if you want a little like a reminder and it in written form, in the first handout of the week 1, there's about California natives, and they have a little blurb on there about naturalized plants, just to kind of clarify. But yeah, I would that first handout about native plants, it's an introduction to native plants, is that first one.
Because what I decided to do when I was wondering if they were native is because I told you it's 4th generation Los Angeles, right? So I went back to some ancestral photos I have at the turn of the century of the landscaping here. And you know what I saw? A tumbleweed, a juniper tree, and looked like some eucalyptus, and there was nothing. It was dirt.
Right. Well, even at that point, so like these are plants, the native plants were here before European contact. So like before the 1600s. So even if you went back, California's like 4 generations, it's not far enough back to have the landscape before. Okay. So it's hard because it's very, very old. But even at that point, they've already, in Los Angeles, they had already cleared a bunch of stuff, planted eucalyptus. I mean, they spread things globally in ships.
There was a ranch. Yeah.
So Molly, when we talk about the definition of a native plant to anywhere, well, specifically to the United States, a native plant is a plant that was here before European contact. So that is a native plant. That's one of the reasons we also, do the land acknowledgement, to recognize that, the area that we are on has had people on it for 10,000 years. The plants probably longer than that. All right, so that is a California native plant, something that was in that floristic province before European contact. And it's very possible that the plants were brought over through trade from other parts of the continent, but they were still here before European contact.
Mm-hmm. I have a question about invasive native, like the stipa or stipa grass. It's invasive. Are we allowed to plant them?
The stipa, the stipa plant. Well, there are stipas that are the stipa, the genus. I think that's what you're referring to. There are California natives within it. So there's like the stipa cernua, but not all stipa are going to be the same, like certain species. So stipa pulchra, which is the purple needle grass, and Stipa cernua. So that's down to the species. And the genus is larger, and there are other members in the genus that maybe are not native. So like an example would be like, well, I guess it's not the best example, but like Homo sapien, you have Homo erectus, Homo blah, blah. These are all these other hominid species that were kind of like humans, but Homo sapiens are humans, and they can't mate with any other kind of like homogeneous thing. I might be getting too much into the weeds, but essentially the genuses can have a lot of different species in them, even though the name, they all have Stipa. There could be Stipa pulchera, Stipa Stipa, and some Stipas are invasive. So it is important to know the species name when you're purchasing or planting things. I hope I answered that, Dolly. Any other questions? Pulchera, yeah. Thank you, Brenda. I love Brenda. She's got it all under control. Always my support.
The homework is this time, I guess, is you want an emailed photograph and then an analysis of the plant that you're photographing. That is a California native, right?
Yeah. And a good way, if you're like not familiar with what is and what isn't, is use calscape.org. They only have natives. So if you type it in and it doesn't come up, it's not a native. So that could be helpful if you're like, oh, I think this is, try typing it in into calscape.org. And you can also just search any other place, but that one's really helpful. It kind of narrows it down.
Yeah, we have 7 eucalyptus trees here, Citriodoras, because they smell good when you walk on them and go through them, but I don't think those are naturals. But then we have
eucalyptus are not native. They were brought over.
They're Australian.
Yeah.
Australian. And then we have the sycamore tree in the backyard that is more, at least all I know is it's more than a half a century. It's so huge and old. When this development was put in, this tree was here.
Well, sycamore, the Platanus racemosa is a native. But yeah, it's maybe it would be helpful to go onto the Theodore Payne Foundation database and just like if you recognize a plant on there, use that one, and then that'll be a helpful way to, I think, look for them. Because
so when I went to London, I saw those parks in London are just lined with the sycamore trees, and I thought, oh my God,
that might be a different species because there's different ones. So I did put the link to the Theodore Payne database in the chat. I don't know if you want to scroll through, but if you would just want to find it on the front page of our website, I think it's under Learn and Database. So it's on the front page. So Molly, if you don't know, excuse me, what it is and whether or not it's a native, the easiest way for me to identify plants is just take a really good picture of the leaf, the top and the bottom, okay, and then try and run it through a photo filter. iNaturalist is really good, and you'll get telling you what what it is, and then you can Google the name and see if it's a native or not. But leaf pictures are fantastic.
Yeah, great
top
point.
And bottom.
Yeah, iNaturalist is a great resource for that, and it'll get you at least close. Yeah, and it's free.
iNaturalist?
Little I, capital Naturalist.
Okay. All righty, cool, good job. I really appreciate it and enjoyed this day. Thank you very much.
Sure, no problem. And of course, you're here to learn, so don't worry if you don't know what the plants are. When Claire mentioned something about basket bush, I'm like, basket bush, I know what that is. And then you said skunk bush. I'm like, oh yeah, it's the aromatica. And then you said the trilobata. I'm like, no, I think it got renamed, right?
See, that's
and
the
so
thing.
I went outside. I'm like, no, I know this is basket bush. I know it has 3 lobes, but it smells, so it has to be the aromatica.
Yeah.
Right? So if the team has the answers.
Yeah, exactly. Trust in we have the resources, but not any one individual person has to know everything. I'm really not a big, it's like there are 6,000 different species of California natives. So it's really hard to be an expert. 6,000 at least,
7,900 and something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Including the cultivars and all of that. Yeah, because I looked. Trust me, I look all the time.
Yeah. Okay, well, unless